Good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, including mine. Well, hello. I'm Morgan Plitt, and I'm a senior at Longreach High School, and my prom was last night, and I went, so I'm a little tired. But bear with me, okay, guys? I've attended Glenmar my whole life, so a lot of you may recognize me since I sing with the youth quartet and the youth choir here. And while you all may recognize me, not all of you may know that I'm a Girl Scout, and I have been one for 7 years. While I've never gotten my Gold Award because I have ambitions in other areas, this does not mean that the Girl Scout law and promise aren't close to my heart. All scouting organizations, whether they're Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or Venture Crew, have some kind of promise the members vow to keep. Today, I would like to talk about the promises we make to ourselves, to each other, and most importantly, to God. Ever since elementary school, we have been constantly making goals for ourselves. These goals took all different shapes and forms as the years went by. For example, in first grade, my goal was to make my teacher like me. I think I won. She liked me by the end of the year. In sixth grade, my goal was to turn in all my homework on time. I think I missed one. And in high school, some people strive to have a high enough score on the SAT or the ACT to get into these Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. But I didn't understand the point of filling out these pieces of paper and handing them into my teacher at the beginning of every year. Why was it so important to have a goal? Well, think of a goal this way. A goal is something that we wish to accomplish, but it is also a form of a promise. It is something we wish to make a reality. Therefore, we're promising ourselves that we will work to complete it. A goal is pointless if you're not going to strive towards it. Personal goals are definitely a form of promise to yourself, but goals do not have to be these huge endeavors. For example, I promised myself this year that I would study for my AP exams and finals at least half an hour a day since last month. Let's just say, it's not easy to motivate yourself when it's raining outside. I just want to curl up on my couch with the popcorn bowl and the movie playing. But I managed to complete this goal. In fact, I had my economics final on Friday. Passed that, so that's good. Even these kinds of promises, while small, are important to keep. While we all make promises with ourselves, we also make promises with the people around us. People make promises all the time. I promise my parents I'll be home at a decent time on school nights. I promise my teachers that I will not get senioritis and stop doing my work completely. Some promises, like these, are small. However, other promises are life-changing. When you get married and you say, I do, what are you promising? Anybody have an answer for me? What are we promising? Very good. We know our wedding vows. Yay. You're promising to spend your life with the person you're standing beside, no matter what may happen. And speaking of weddings, Pastor Jen is going to get married in a few weeks on May 26th, so congratulations, wherever you are. A wedding vow is just another word for a promise, just like the word contract is another word for a promise. Contracts are legally binding to the signer, and you're bound to the terms it specifies. However, with a contract, there's also a consequence when you choose to break it. The penalties usually are some monetary value or a precious item like your house or your car. While we all make promises every day, what's so important about them? Well, in the past, a man's word meant he was going to do what he said. A man's word was his promise. Nowadays, though, it's harder to believe a person for their word because people break their promises daily. But Why do we break our promises? Are they really that hard to keep? Here's my theory. People break promises because sometimes it's just easier than keeping them. Some people make promises just to shut the other party up. For example, I may promise my parents that I'll come home right after rehearsal, but really, I'm going to come home after stopping at Target and Starbucks and Chipotle. I make the promise to get them off my case about using gas. While this is a hypothetical example, it happens somewhere in the world. While people make promises and have the ability to break them, God does not break his promises with us. God's promise to us is that he has a plan for us. His promise is that he will provide for us when we need help. He will be there for us when we are alone. And most importantly, he will save us and he will love us forever. Well, this may be hard to believe. These things are the promises he has made to us. Hebrews 6 states that when God made his promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, he swore by himself. God has provided for his people as long as they have lived on earth. He gave the Israelites food and water when they were following Moses across the desert back into their homeland. While the people lacked faith in God after all he had done for them, which led to their punishment of wandering around the desert for 40 years, he still provided for them because he loved them. When mankind was steeped in corruption and sin, God fulfilled his promise according to the book of Romans by telling you that Christ has become a servant of the Jews on behalf of God's truth, so that the promises made to the patriarchs might be confirmed. God loves us so much that he let his son die on the cross to fulfill his promise to us. God is omnipresent. You can always talk to him when you're in need, no matter where you are. He has kept his promises with us, but sometimes we fail to keep our promises with him. When we are confirmed, we promise to follow God and support God's church through our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness. But what does that mean? Does that mean we need to fulfill a certain amount of service hours, like for a National Honor Society, or sit in prayers for a particular amount of time? Thankfully, the answer to that is no. While prayer and service are good things to do, they aren't necessary to keep our promise to God. All that is required to keep our promise to God is one word: faith. What is faith? People say we need to have faith in God and in other people, but what does that mean? The dictionary.com definition of faith is a belief that is not based on proof. However, my definition of faith is trusting something or someone that is willing to help you. We have faith in God because he was always there to lean on when we need him. However, not everyone is able to feel God's presence. This may be true for many people, but I bet there will come a time when he will appear before us. I can't describe it because it's different for every person, but when he appears before you, you'll definitely know. While faith alone is not enough, it is necessary for us to have faith in God before we focus on other things. Now, what happens if we break our promise to God? Anybody have any ideas? No? You get punished? Not necessarily. When we break our promises with other people, we usually get the cold shoulder from the person the promise was made to. They're angry with us for breaking our promises, and rightly so. We have given them a reason to be disappointed in us, and that's never good. What do you do to make amends with the person you hurt? Anybody? Yep, that's right. You apologize. It may be difficult sometimes. In fact, sometimes an apology isn't enough to fix things. But if the apology is sincere, the likelihood is that that person will forgive you. For example, 2 years ago, I promised my twin sister I'd go trick-or-treating with her, just as we always had. But then I got invited to a friend's Halloween party. I told the friend I would go since I'd never been to a Halloween party before. I told my sister I had changed my mind about trick-or-treating with her and that I was going to the party instead. She asked if she could tag along, and I answered no. It wasn't my party, so wouldn't it be rude if I invited her too? She really got upset, and we got into an argument about it. Let's just say, no one wants to be in the same house as my sister and I when we argue. You know how normal sisters fight or how teenagers fight with their parents? Multiply that times 10. That's how badly we were going at each other. Anyway, the whole thing got blown way out of proportion, and Mommy got involved. She said if we kept arguing, neither of us could go anywhere. In the end, I went to the party with my friend, and my sister went trick-or-treating with a different group of friends around the neighborhood. The next day, though, she still wouldn't talk to me. So I finally asked why she was so mad at me. She said it was because I broke my promise. I said, so what? It was good to have a new experience. Her response to me was, I don't like the fact that you left me alone. We always go trick-or-treating together, and I hate that you chose your friend over me. While I hadn't viewed my decision that way, she apparently did. Afterwards, once I reflected on my actions a little and thought about how I made her feel, I apologized, and I promised I would go trick-or-treating with her next year. She said I better keep that promise. I did. I did keep it. But what does that have anything to do with mending a broken promise made to God? Well, we handle fixing problems with God like we do with other people. We ask for God's forgiveness. He'll always forgive us if our apology comes from the bottom of our hearts. If we tell him that we are going to do better, at least try to do better. Don't just slip back into old habits, though I'll admit old habits die hard. They really do. We can always improve our relationship with God through our prayers, our presence, our service, our gifts, and our witness. However, wouldn't it be better if we didn't break our promises in the first place? The answer to that will always be yes. In fact, studies show that people who keep their promises are under less stress than the people who constantly break promises. This is because people who break promises often feel guilty about breaking their promises. These people also lose friends and opportunities because they've broken their word. We can always prevent ourselves from breaking our promises by not making them unless we are going to keep them. Keeping promises can only help us as they invoke feelings of trust from the people around us. What does keeping our promises tell others about us? Well, if you kept your promise to me, it would tell me that you're dependable. It tells me that I can trust you to be at a specified place on time with everything necessary to get our job done. It means that I and other people around you could trust you. This is a really good trait. It gives other people the ability to write good recommendation letters or references, which never hurts when you're trying to get into college or get a job. Both good things. So, I'm going to leave everyone with a challenge. remember our promise to God? Well, I challenge each of us to fulfill it to the best of our ability. No matter where we are or who we're with, always remembers that God keeps his promises with us. We should keep ours with him.